You tell Aaron.
So we got like 10 minutes.
Nah, I like to keep people time. If you want to stare at the sanctuary.
We get work to go.
Yeah. Everything's live.
Okay.
Has anything crashed yet?
Looking good.
too warm or too cold.
But not too light. I mean, I was thinking that I'm light, and I said, no, it's not light, but
It's a dark, gloomy day.
it's dark gloomy, but it needs a touch of red.
Yes,
That's
pink and red and
that's
burgundy,
the
purple and blue. Okay, in other words, we need a little bit of everything. I can't get a lick. You didn't have your eyeglasses on? Oh, yeah, exactly.
Now, I took a real bad fall in 2013, and my face was broke. Cracked the patella.
Ooh. Did you need surgery when you tell them?
No, but I was in this really uncomfortable brace for like 6 weeks.
I drive, but Wayne has to put the key in and turn it on, and put on my seatbelt, and then he has to do the gear shift in the middle, and all I do is drive.
Before I was working, obviously 6 months. And then I
And it's done, it's a healing process. Legs and toes and chest. My hand went in the drywall, so I took the two knots.
I had concussions as I went down that and just hit the tile.
And that's the only way to work it. But then shift into the drywall. But my hand was hard. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being here this morning, especially on a day like today.
Yeah.
We live in a world that can feel like heavy skies. It can feel like cold, isolation and brokenness and Cold War. We live in a world where we are needed to gather and be something different than that. And there are people, there are prophets, there are poets who call us back together and summon the very best in us to speak to the world what we know can be. a world where every person can live. Listen to the words of fire.
Good morning. I just want to say I'm really honored to be here today. I didn't think I would be this emotional. It's been a really long time since I've been in church. And I wore this hat today for my grandmother because that's, I used to, play in her hats when I was a little girl and before we would go to church, and I just remembered that, and it was just a really good memory. And so this is really nostalgic, and I'm very glad and honored to be here with people I don't know, but feels like I do know. So thank you. So this piece that I'm going to do today, it is called Community because that is what we're talking about today. There's a reason the word unity is in community. Unity means unifying of things, of people, and bringing together of. We all have been brought here with a sacred brick. Before you even became a seed of anything or any thought, you had a brick. That brick is your purpose. You cannot build anything with one brick. Think about this beautiful building. Look at the pillars up here. There had to be something else to stick next to something, to stick next to something, to stick next to something for us to have a foundation. You can't have a foundation without the bricks. And that mortar is the spirit that keeps us all bounded together. That spirit that makes, it transcends our time, our skin, our faiths, all of these things. When I was coming here today, I remembered, I don't even know what the verse is, but I know it says something like, when one or two are gathered in my name, there you are also. And I think that's a phenomenal thing to say, because that means you can't have God in the space that you're in without having people, right? And so the more people that you have that are gathered together, the more God is going to bless that space. So I think it's a phenomenal thing that we have these spaces like this. I looked at this right here, and it has all the tools of the breaking the ground into the future and the strengthening of the foundation, and you have to have the tools. Each of us was brought here with a specific tool, and it is up to us to be able to put those tools together to see how they work together for community. I thought about trees. I'm a nature fiend, and that's the first place that I saw God in my life. And so I thought about, what if the trees decided to stop giving us oxygen? Because we as humans have not been really that nice to this planet, right? What if they said, I'm gonna stop because you don't care about this place enough? What if God said, I'm gonna stop because you don't know who you are yet, or you haven't figured out your purpose yet? What if those divine things that keep us here stopped, just stopped, because we didn't think, that they said, I've given you thousands and millions of years, but that spirit keeps us together. The same mortar that's keeping this community together is the same thing that brought this planet here. It's the reason that me as a black woman can stand in this space right here today. It's the community. Someone said, I'm sorry. Sacred purpose is always inside of you before you get here. And it's your purpose to find out what that is. There's a reason why we have unit in community. There's a reason that the word commune is in community. You can't commune without having a community. You can't have a unit without having commune. They both go together. In our black community, there was a song by a woman named Bessie Smith, and I'm going to sing just a little bit of it. A lot of people think it's because she didn't have a mom or something like that, but it was because of the belonging of family. So it says, I feel like a motherless child. I feel like a motherless child. A long way home. I feel like a motherless child. A long way home. When you're put in a place that you're not from, you don't feel community sometimes. For a black woman, sometimes it's really hard, especially when you know that you're supposed to take up space in any space. So I offer you to always know that we all got a mother, and it's a universal one. We've all got a father, and it's a universal one. That is what's going to bind us together. I'm going to share a poem called Education, because I'm huge on education, and I just think it just takes a lot of different faces, and it's just expressed a little bit different. So this is my interpretation of an education. Education, education, somebody please tell me where's the libation? All I ever see is undercompensation, synthesizing teachers with shaky sensations. They say you find this in the school, but when I've scoped around, all I've seen was fools. No building up of the mind and soul, stuck in subordinate standards, blasted with mind control. So now it takes its toll. They say the hex is Generation X. All they seem to think and do is sex. Government knows what's next is death. So you go to college to get some knowledge and build enough revenue to own your own cottage. So now you caught up and you forgot why you attended, all the while your soul you have compromised and bended. See, when you enroll into an institution, you got to think of it as part of the solution, and what you obtain, you got to give that back. That's why we stay strong and proud that I'm black, because we are made in the likeness of the great divine. So as I always say, change is time, and it's the only true real that we all really know. You got to take that piece of God within you and educate yourself on how to grow. Shout to the heavens and to the earth and see the manifest of life rebirth. You see, education, it is much more than a diploma or degree. It is the understanding and the loving of the you and the me. Be able to open your eyes so you can see that you got to give back to your community in hopes of creating a unity. Our children need, so on your missions, please proceed. They need to know simplistic things like how to speak and write and read. They are the seeds, they are the hearts. They just need a push to get their start. So as parents and teachers, we play our parts. Not just for yours, but for all around, for all our children. The black, the brown, the white, the red, the yellow too, ain't no limits on the spiritual. Stand up so proud and take your bows, achieve your balance and wipe that fury off your brow, because the time, baby, the time is now. Educate yourself from the inside out. Thank you so much.
Living in the fire, turn the world around. We come from the fire, living in Thank you all. What beautiful music today and what beautiful words. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Jenkins, and I serve as President-elect on the Board of Trustees of this Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. Stop. Welcome, members, friends, and visitors this morning, whether you are in person or joining us virtually. We are a welcoming congregation, and whether you are in this room or online, you are valued and you are loved. We are delighted to have you here this morning. The UUCS Board of Trustees continues to review and update our COVID safety policies every 3 months. In consideration of recommendations made by the COVID Ad Hoc Committee, as well as current CDC guidelines, our policies have been updated as follows. Vaccinations and boosters are recommended for all who are eligible. Wearing a mask while indoors is recommended, and masks are required in RE. Personal space should be honored, a great rule for here and in life in general. Hybrid options will remain available for worship as well as other church activities. Please stay home if you are feeling unwell and give yourself the time you deserve to heal. And friends, please hear me when I say this. We remain steadfast in our policy of no shaming of individual choices. This is crucial to our ongoing efforts to be a welcoming congregation for all. Coffee hour, that time-honored UUCS tradition, will return to the Fellowship Hall after service beginning in March on the 1st and 3rd Sundays of each month. You can enjoy this time indoors or carry your snacks and coffee outdoors, whatever makes you feel most comfortable. However, while not actively eating or drinking, it is recommended that masks continue to be worn by all while indoors. Thank you for exercising caution and care during this latest step in our incremental return to church activities. The UUCS Board will reassess our pandemic policy at the end of May, though we recognize that there may be a need to modify and adjust along the way. Above all, we thank each and every one of you for making this a place of warmth and welcome. We are glad you are here.
Good morning. I'm Tonya Bauer, and it's always a pleasure to be here. And this morning sharing with others is by Ella Baker in Anthony Payne Humanism. Ella Baker was a civil rights and human rights activist whose work spanned more than 5 decades. Baker was known for developing emerging leaders for the movement. She wrote of the Black church of her upbringing, pastored by her grandfather. There were people who stood for something, as I call it. Your relationship to human beings was more important than the amount of money you made.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call.
Good morning. And good morning to all our friends online today. I'm Clemson, and I'm privileged to facilitate 3 traditions that bind our loving community. And the first is very interactive, our shared greeting. As we share our abundant, loving energy, please, as Alan said, honor personal space and join in greeting others. If you're online, take this time to send a text, email, WhatsApp, WeChat, Spotify, or however you reach out to others, and call someone you desire to connect with. And here in the sanctuary, in the spirit of reverse musical chairs, when Aaron begins playing music, please return to your seat. As an added bonus, the last person who sits down will be the chair for the next pledge drive. Let us greet one another.
Nobody's moving away from their seats.
Jason, how are you? Good to see you. I think that's the fastest I've ever seen. Absolutely. No, thanks. And we're going to continue our energy. The second tradition is also collaborative. In our loving community, our only creed is the covenant we make with each other, defining how we choose to live in unity. Please join and share together our common agreement of our faith in each other. We are a people of faith and hope. Together, we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. And this leads to our third tradition, and it's reflective. And in this reflective tradition, we share our financial resources to help expand our work in the community and beyond. We share our joys and sorrows. And a joy shared ripples energy across our community. And a sorrow shared lessens our burdens. For our friends online, I'm going to add 2 shelves, one for the joys and one for the burdens. And I invite all to come forward, share your energy, release your sorrow, and enhance our work in the community. Please share with each other now.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one.
The Individual Within Community by Anthony Pinn. African American humanism understands, unchecked, progress as intimately connected to the dynamics of white supremacy, sexism, homophobia, environmental destruction, and so on. In an effort to fight these types of oppression, African American humanism at its best, as advocated by figures such as Alice Walker and Zora Neale Hurston, promotes the integrity of life as the focus of humanist praxis. In this manner, African American humanism seeks to promote a sense of the individual within the context of community.
I was watching very closely for who our next annual fun chair is going to be. And I was so moved by the act of service that I saw, because Clemson is the only person who didn't sit down. Everybody in favor, stay seated. I'm happy to say that democracy is one of our 7 principles. I want to thank Don and Mary Miles, who now almost a year ago purchased a sermon in our auction. And the way this works, well, usually it's an annual auction, but last year there were 2 of them. And people are invited to purchase sermons if they would like. And Don and Mary did so. As we said earlier this month, they paid dearly then and even more dearly now. They asked that we do a sermon on humanism, and we spent the month talking about humanism. So I just want to say thank you to them for all that they've offered. So much of the music this month was also suggested by them. I've heard from many of you, it has been a very rich month of inquiry and thinking, of both affirmation and of challenge. There's an old humanist tradition called a talkback session, where after a service, folks who'd like to hang around for just a few minutes, not for long, can give the preacher hell. or just think critically with each other. And we value dialogue in this congregation. We hold a lot of dialogues. We hold study sessions with each other. And in the past of this congregation, back during the decades illustrated on the wall behind us, there was a time when we did talkback sessions almost every week. But we have not been doing that. And so today, after the service, we're just going to taste that a little bit, do a little experimenting with it. I myself am completely new to this and may run screaming from the room. Or may turn to Clemson and cry. But I want to invite you. We're not going to stay long because I am having an ice cream lunch with some of our youth today, and you're not getting in the way of that. But I love you all, but ice cream rises to the top. So it's not going to be long, but I want to invite you if you'd like to stay. We'll just gather here and talk some, like a college bowl session. Join me in silence. community. In his scathing and luminous and poetic book, The Fire Next Time, James Baldwin, with a brilliant economy of words, it's a short book, untangles and names the layers and layers of misperception and biased view that rise up out of historical structural racism in our country. It's like watching a surgeon work. It's unbelievably precise and revealing. And towards the end of this unsparing and absolutely beautiful book, Baldwin naming way after way after way that white supremacy has marginalized black people in our country. He says, when white people find themselves in deep trouble, really deep trouble, the deepest trouble, they often turn to black people for help. It's an image of someone with all the opportunity in the world, like me, finding themselves lost, sidelined, impoverished, whatever our choices or circumstances might bring us to, down on our luck and worse. Turning to people who've been kicked to the side for 500 years and finding welcome and support. It's just a mind-blowing image. A part of what it shows us is that no matter the ideologies that we live in, no matter our politics and our divisions, no matter all the weight of history that we carry with us, there's a fundamental understanding in our existence, in our humanity, that we need each other, that we are interconnected, connected with each other. And that when we are at our worst moment, there are still people to whom we may turn for help. This doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean that it's fair. There's a whole lot in the one sentence that Baldwin writes, and that's true for every single sentence in the book. But part of what it reveals is that fundamentally we know we are part of this world together. And we cannot live apart. And when we really need each other, we call on each other. When I was with you 2 Sundays ago, I asked you to bring to mind an image. It's a photograph that some of us will have seen. Does anybody remember what the photograph is? I see heads nodding, but no words spoken. Say it, Nicole. Yes. The March on Washington in 1963, 3, thank you. And 250,000 people from across the country coming together to speak out against systemic racism and to advocate for civil rights, shared life together. Gathering at the mall on Washington, between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial, for Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. And that gathered there in that space, all these people come by bus and train and car and foot and however they got there, sat down together along that reflecting pool and bathed their feet in the water together. Just bring that image to mind. If you've seen the photograph, you can picture it. If you haven't seen it, just imagine these people with their feet on this scorching hot August day, feet in the water together, finding respite, soothing cool in the heat of our democracy, together that day. We tell stories about heroes. Rabbi Joachim Prince, who spoke out against Hitler's regime and was forced into exile, and when he arrived in this country and realized the way in which our own country marginalized and oppressed people, he felt it incumbent upon himself to use his faith and his leadership to speak out. And so on that same day, he spoke. People like Dr. King, whose words still echo through time, and may they always, and who gave his life, was murdered to call us to consciousness. And people like Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass 100 years before, wrestling with each other and striving with each other and pushing each other so that the Emancipation Proclamation could go out across this land. We name these heroes and we speak their lives, the words that they shared and the actions they took, to know our history and to inspire our own action. When I think about that day, about what had happened 100 years before and what happened on that day then, I think about those heroes. And I think, what if those heroes had showed up to speak, but no one had come to march with them? It's painfully ridiculous to think about these brilliant orators and great religious and political leaders standing on the hallowed steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation to proclaim justice across the land to an empty mall. It doesn't work. It took all of those people showing up and giving their own lives, giving their own time, giving their own resources to be there together for that moment to work. And Dr. King knew that, and Joachim Prince knew that. Their powerful oratory was to commend and call us as a people, not just to be brilliant individual heroes. Frederick Douglass knew who he was fighting for, and it wasn't just himself. $80,000 bag lunches were made to support the marchers that day. 3 times that many people showed up. Sounds like a modern-day parable of loaves and fishes to me. And don't you just imagine that some people tore their cheese sandwiches in half and handed it to somebody else so they can make it through that day, working together to do something that matters together. You know, the thing that I have been thinking about for the last 2 weeks, the contents of those bag lunches, as I understand it, was a cheese sandwich, an apple, and a piece of pound cake. And the question in my mind has been, who made all the pound cake? Like, really, think about it, right? Next week, we're going to start back with our coffee hour, right? For 2 years, my daughter's been asking me, is there going to be cake this Sunday? I'll come if there's cake, right? Who made the pound cake? I guarantee you it wasn't me. I wasn't born then, but if I was, you wouldn't have wanted me to make it. It would have collapsed, right? Beautiful, sad streak straight through that thing. And what would it have been like to open that up and to have that someone made to fuel you in that day and to break that and share it in halves or in thirds? I see bakers here. Can you imagine? That march was an act of all of those people giving their lives for each other and for a world that they knew could be. And imagine what it took for them to get there, the people who didn't want them there, the people who would do what they could to stop them from being there. John Kennedy put forward legislation following that march. You know what happened to him. All that all those people gave together. We see the heroes, we praise their names, we listen to their words and actions. But let us see the team, the community. And not just those 250,000 people that showed up that morning to march that day. But think of the dinner table conversations in the days before. Would you go? What would you face? What resources did we need to pool to get you there? And of the multiple people who stayed behind to work, to care for children, to keep house so that one person could go. Imagine that whole network of families all across this country making that happen, and the congregations rallying people, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, UU, whatever. All of those people working together so that we have a dream. Not one man's dream. A dream spoken by the lives of millions of people working together through time to try to make a world. Humanism is just the philosophy that we are responsible for our lives and for the world that we create. In his book on humanism, a black philosopher and religious thinker, Anthony Penn, is a humanist, pairs classical humanist philosophy with black life in this country. And his purpose is in part to show how you don't have to be a humanist philosopher to live humanist values. Reading this book with a group of UU theology students this past fall, it was a virtual course. Our professor said at a certain moment in class, you know, when I think about it, aren't we all humanists, really? Because we all face the question of what will our lives be and what is the world that we'll create? Part of what Penn wants to show is that you don't have to have read the books or come from the classical Western tradition or go to what is an outstanding humanist gathering on the second Tuesday of every month in our fellowship hall to still embody these values. What he wants to do is to name the values and tell stories of lives that express those values. To show us how powerful these values are. how transformative they are. And part of what Penn insists on is that Black life also has something to say to those values. It's not just, oh, look, humanist values emerge in these lives, but the resilience and power of these lives has something to teach humanism. The last third of his book is on community, on the way that culture is created to sustain us and push us, and the way that we depend on each other to make a life. Penn is concerned that if our philosophy is simply, I'm responsible for my life and for the world that I will create, we are prone to fall into a blind individualism. And down that path, he sees destruction. What he wants to do is to show us that an individual that ignores community, that tries to make a hero of itself in the absence of the world around it, is a person doomed to create destruction, to create failure. But when we live cognizant of community, building a life in relationship with other people, we make life. We create life. The difference may seem subtle, but for Penn, as a Black man in this country, it is the difference between life and death. And don't you think the people in Ukraine would say the same thing today? I see a man trying to be a hero. He's taken responsibility for his life and is trying to create a world that he wants to live in. And this morning, he raised the threat of nuclear arms. That is individualism become tyranny. Think of the lives that were on this planet 1 week ago that have ended by this Sunday because of one person's assertion of themselves against the world around them. We don't need to be naive. We need to see the world as clearly as we can for what it is. There are people who are going to assert themselves on our lives, to try to seat themselves on a golden throne for however long they can keep it. Some of them are on the other side of the world. Some of them are right here. Some of them have confused the golden throne for their toilet seat. We need to see as clearly as we can how this works. We need to hear the voice of a person like James Baldwin, who says all of us can choose that way if we're not careful. And then we can listen to the wisdom of James Baldwin, Anthony Penn, Joaquin Prince, Martin Luther King Jr., Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, 250,000 people whose names I don't know who marched together, and multiple people beyond that whose names are untraceable to me, whose words and actions say, if we do it together, we have a much better chance, not a perfect chance, a much better chance to do it well. for the world that we create not to be a world that erases each other, but a world that makes space for every one of us to live. We are starting to reconnect, to build back after 2 years of being pulled apart. All through this pandemic, we have tried to find each other, to find ways to be with each other, to build each other up and to connect each other, even when we don't agree at all about many things. Next week, if you so choose, you can drink a cup of coffee with someone else in this congregation. It just feels nice to know that that might happen, right? And that we might have that choice if we so choose. No pressure, no shame. Don't miss how deep it goes. Don't miss what that binding together can mean. We live in a world of rising autocracy. We live in a world in which former presidents praise dictators instead of hard-won alliances. We live in a world where the gains valiantly fought for 100 years and more, realized at the cost of multiple heroes' lives in the Civil Rights Act of 1965, have been almost entirely gutted since then by courts and legislation and redistricting. We live in a world that we need to see clearly. But when we do the work to bind together, to share a slice of pound cake or any cake, or ourselves with each other, we are choosing to create a world where people can live. I'm not saying that all nuclear threats will be passed next Sunday when I've had my cup of coffee with you. That's not what I mean. But when we choose life with each other, when we choose to make life with each other, we are pushing back against all that would take life. We are taking responsibility for our lives and what we can create within the reality of our lives so that another person can live. In the lives of the heroes and of the millions of people who heroically made their lives possible, tell us that it matters.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to Feel the rhythm, feel the need to reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, a child, behold, must die. Time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
The Very Acts of Living by Anthony Payne. Religion should not be collapsed into theism. Religion is a binding together, an approach or system for attempting to make life meaningful. It is a framing of human experience so as to answer the large questions of our existence: who, what, when, where, and why are we? The significance given to humanity, the value placed on life within the existential context of human history without appeal to transcendence, invest with deep meaning. The mundane activities such as eating a meal with loved ones, they become sacramental activities of a sort, activities of a celebratory nature. Such is a perspective on the sacramental nature of ordinary life, the depth of meaning found in the uneventful events of life. In this respect, the very acts of living within the context of community involve sacraments of sorts, rituals of the ordinary.
When Aaron was offering our hymns today, I heard this ghost of voices hovering over the congregation. Feel welcome to sing.
We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday